So, welcome to this livecast session, part of the Dhaka Global Dialogue 2019. We will be talking about the millennial nation, how youth are reshaping politics. To have a discussion with us on this topic today, we have two under 40 MPs from Bangladesh and India. On my right is Divya Maderna, a member of the Rajasthan Legislative Assembly, India, being a part of Indian National Congress Party. Divya, welcome.
Thank you so much.
And on my left is Barrister Shamim Haidar Patwari. He is a second-time member of the Bangladesh Parliament and is also a presidium member of the opposition party in Bangladesh, Jatiyo Party. While youth are the majority of the population in this world, we see them as severely underrepresented in many of the policy-making positions, be it the parliament, be it national parliaments, political parties, representation in cabinet and government positions. Their representation do not reflect their sheer number, whether it's in India or in Bangladesh or throughout the globe. So my first question to you, Divya, is why is it that when the average age of the Indian, so given your entire population, the average age is 28 years, the average age of your MP, any MP in India, is 54 years. Why can't we see a more reflective representation of youth in Indian parliament or Indian politics generally?
Well, I do agree with what you've said, me, and it's not an issue of India, it's a global issue. I was just looking at the data, and they said 80% of the parliaments don't even have MPs below 30. It's a very, very global issue, and I think it's high time that we all need to address this in the same manner. And awareness, I believe, is the key to it. As the more we communicate and educate and get cause to the awareness, I think we will reach out to the foundation problems here. And I think I'm very, very glad with ORF, Samir, and this strategic partnership between BLIS and ORF that we are here sitting in Dhaka having a conversation about more youth participation. I also very firmly believe that leadership is not about next election, it is about next generation. And we need to invest in next generation. We need to, you know, I was listening to the Prime Minister yesterday and about the miracle economy. And she said, this is not because it is achieved because we have invested in the human resource of Bangladesh. We've been able to do this. I think we need to invest in youth, but yes, of course, investing in youth is to give them autonomy, even if they fail. And that's the risk we need to start taking. We think because they're inexperienced, they don't have experience of office, they're not have the exposure of administration, and to give them and make them sit and hold pens in these decision-making chairs is going to be at higher risk. I think we need to start giving them autonomy even if they fail. And to develop and nurture and mentor this kind of leadership is, of course, requires a superhuman patience, which we all will have to develop.
From Divya, I'll come to Shamim on the same point that Divya was talking, that we have to take the risk of giving youth the opportunities to be on that positions of policy making or political leadership. Do you agree with that firstly? And my second question to you would be that while we see that there may be a lack of representation of the youth on a global level in national parliaments, government, cabinets, government positions, but we do see them often quite politically active. So whether it's the road safety movement in Bangladesh or the Fridays for Future movement globally, where you have a very teenage person leading a global movement for better action against climate change. So that shows that the young are politically informed and active, but it's more when they find the correct movements to be part of, rather than being part of mainstream political parties.
Well, I'm totally agree with Divya. Of course, the whole world is running through a representative deficit. Of course, the youth are huge in number, and the reflection is very poor in the parliament or in the party bodies and everywhere. And you says about the reflection, it's not even close to reflection, but now the question is how we can increase the number of youth politicians or youth member of parliament or youth ministers. This is you cannot do overnight, and you have to Think about the impediment that the youth face. Funding is a big issue. Party nomination is a very big issue. Party selection in the important post becoming a big issue. And these all issues, when a young has to combat, it's very difficult for him or her to go ahead. And now it is the political parties should come up with a reservation type situation, or with a funding type situation. The state should come up with a funding type situation. The world is at crossroad, no doubt about it. If you look at the economic disorder, 50% of the youth are not happy with the economy of the world. If you look at the politics worldwide, 50% of youth are not happy with the current political system, and in many countries we have seen the extreme nationalism and extreme rightist movement is getting popular. This is also because the youth are not engaging themselves in organized political party. As you rightly says, they engage themselves in movement. In Bangladesh, we have seen a couple of successful movement by students and youths. But if you look into the party structure, we have seen many youths, many potential youths, they are in the bottom of the party structure. So it is the party's responsibility to lift them up, 2 tiers, 3 tiers, give them nominations. We have women reservation seats in parliament. Maybe time has come to keep some reservation for youths. We need some MPs who are 25. We need some MP who are 30. We need some MP who are 35. We also need some MPs who are 80s, because that's the way the nation should be represented. And it is the state responsibility to ensure that youth students cannot fight all the odds to be a member of parliament, to be a big post in the politics. And also, if you look at the family background issue, without family background, you will find a single or very few youths who become prominent politicians.
Shamim, I'll take 3 points from you and put it to Divya. He mentioned having reservations, for instance, in national or local parliaments for youth. Do you agree with that? There is also a suggestion regarding providing funding from the state level so that youth can get more engaged in the political process, run for elected offices. And so what are your opinions on those 2 issues? And then I'll have a final question for you too.
Well, I completely agree with reservations, and I'm very, very proud to say my president, Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, introduced a 33% reservation bill for women for parliaments and all over in subnational parliaments as well. But it's high time that, as you already said, your parliament already has reservation for women. I think we need to have, because there is no if you want to bring change, and it's been so many years we've been talking about it and advocating about it. How do we do it? As he very rightly said, that we can't do it overnight. We will have to have a structural reform to give that kind of legitimacy and that kind of numbers and ensure that kind of numbers. How do we do it? We cannot do it until we provide a law or a legal framework and insurance that here you are going to be. As far as funding is concerned, there is obviously, there has to be very deep thought about it. How do you do it? If you do it for the youth, you'll have to do it for women, you'll have to do it for everybody else as well. It's like a double-edged sword, because you might...
So would you support, let's say, funding of political parties generally from a state level?
That's what I'm saying. That it has to be, there has to be a very well-thought proposal has to come. You can't say a 80-year-old person, where we're talking about experience in office, could have been a very dead honest person, has been a farmer from a background, it's not very financially apt, has an access door, and you don't give them political funding. I think we need to start right from the school. We need to ensure our policies right from birth, and it is about capacity building. Nutrition. If you're not a healthy being, how do you depend on mental growth and development? Access and opportunity for education. You don't want a leader in the parliament who's not educated, who doesn't understand problems. But it is the government who has to ensure that kind of quality education and access and opportunity to ensure them into debates, open them to what is political participation, give them a mind-challenging issues where they decide which ideology would they like to support and go to. We will have to bring and build an environment which cannot just be done by funding. It has to rightly begin with our policies at every framework of our policies. Every action of us will be able to ensure this is the kind of generation we would like to give and give them success.
Right. Uh, Shamim, the point
Right.
I would like to bring to you is taking the example of Bangladesh. If you look at our history, the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, started his political activism from a very young age. He was a very young politician who took lead of a major political party. And after the independence of Bangladesh, when he formed the first government, it was filled with people who were very educated, qualified, but very young as well. So you probably had a number of MPs, some of them were below 35 even. So why can't we replicate such a record that we had at the beginning of our journey now? What is stopping that?
No, no, it's not stopping that. It's just a corporate culture is attracting more youths than youths in politics. That's one problem. And you rightly says the father of the nation. He started his politics in very tender age, and his tender thought, his revolutionary idea, his poetry about, with Kazi Nazrul, with the rebel poet, and his liberalism, pluralism that reflected throughout his whole career. But it was shaped and molded in his early age. We expect youths to be pluralistic, we expect youths to be liberal. So when you include youth element in politics, the more youth element will be in politics, the more pluralism you will be in politics. This is very essential for any nation all over the world. Now it is not, nobody is stopping it, but the system is so systematically difficult for the youths to be in power and empowered. But technology came up with a great help, and these youths are millennials, they are techno-friendly. So with the help of technology, any youth can be national hero any day. Any good work of any youth can be promoted all over the world. Youth can do branding, excellent. And
But
when
isn't that advent of the new media, the social media, isn't that also a double-edged sword whereby
it is double-edged
you have
sword.
the very poisonous ideologies,
Yes,
violent extremism
yes,
being used
right.
on the youth through social media?
That's also happening. It's true, but you cannot stop it. You cannot stop technology on the ground that it has some double-edged impact. Rather, you use more technology to combat these rumors issues on all these issues. So I think technology came up with a great help for youths, for advertising them, for promoting them, for branding them, to promote themselves as a necessary element of politics. It was not earlier, if you look at 50 years back, unless you become a very big revolutionary hero, the nation would not know how you look like, sir, or what's your name. But nowadays, if you speak very well, if you do very good things, then you can really spread it through Facebook or through social medias, of course. So I think technology came up with a very good idea for the youths. And also we need youth because the world is changing so rapidly. The earlier generation politicians really cannot solve the present generation's problem. Not everybody is equipped to cope with the pace. It's moving so fast. So with the decades ago's fiction now become a reality. So computer was once in Bangladesh, computer only used few number of people. Now it's in mobile.
Yes.
So if the older generation is not equipped with the technology, how can they run the country? It is the youths who are more than happy and more than willing to cope with the technology. You see the World Economic Report, recently they published a report and they find out 4 reasons for Bangladesh highest development in recent times. And one of these is full of youth, and its youth are equipped with technology. The same is true for politics as well.
So my final comments from you regarding what you think are the things that we need to do in order to create more opportunities for youth in politics generally.
We need to open new windows, accessibility, opportunity. Um, you know, I am in that age where you call it millennials. But I didn't get this opportunity to be chosen when I was driving my election campaign. And believe me, my campaign changed because of the youth participation and the movement they took in. But it came gradually. I served 9 years in the constitutional organization at the village level as an elected representative. That made them have the belief in me. And you have to, this age of group is very, very realistic and extremely optimistic as well. You have to be real, even to say, well, I cannot do it, I'm sorry. And to say what your strengths are. And as he was asking, as he was telling that, the old age people cannot cope with it, believe me, I am young, but it's giving me a nightmare. It's like speed, and you have to measure the risk and access the speed, and how would you do it? I'm completely, and you know what? As you were rightly saying, that they happen to participate in movements, but the participation in joining political parties and the number of vote share when we calculate in percentage of youth participation voting out turns out to be very, very low. But I believe we need to create credibility. There is somewhere of lack of confidence in us, maybe. They, as you know, Greta and the climate action has taken a momentum. We need to build that kind of sense in them. We need to have transparency. You know, they're vocal about every issue. A boy sitting in a village who's had access to a village school and has not even come to an urban city, a small urban city, knows about all global issues and has an opinion about them, whether it's Brexit, whether what's happening with all these Indo-Pacific, or whatever is happening on the globe, has his own opinion. Right or wrong is another issue. He's got everything on fingertips. He's on the table. So you've got Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Twitter, you've got Mrs. Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi on Twitter, you've got the Prime Minister on Twitter, you've got all the parliamentarian and legislators on Twitter. So is that next generation boy on Twitter. He's on the table. He's being very vocal about what he thinks, but he does not come and participate. And I think with coming age, we're going to be changing. Technology is going to play a very important role in bridging this gap, I believe, and I very firmly believe. And as you were saying, that you know how hate speech and other agendas are coming, but I'm also realizing that this age is maturing as well to these things. You know, it's understanding the other negative side as well. I mean, of course, everything which comes in new has negative sides, but I also understand this age, this new group is very, very good at adaptability. It very quickly understands the negative as well. So I believe, and I'm very, I think we're going to meet sometime in future, and I think the voting pattern will change. If we have an access in the coming years, and it's going to change, the future of politics is going to change. And I believe we have something called Aadhaar, you know, a unique identification. And believe me, I think we'll be able to create access voting through these apps where somebody sitting at home will be able to vote. And then you see the whole political perception and the political landscape is going to change because how active they are with technology. And if we are able to create that credence, I think everything, the scenario of the political landscape will change completely.
Shamim, final comments from you too on the same matter. What do you think we need to do?
No, of course, we cannot avoid technology. And the good thing is that in the youths of India and Bangladesh, they're vibrant. They're aware of the politics. They have interest in politics. They have interest in voting. In Europe, I have seen many countries, the youth don't even bother to go for voting. That's the double challenge for them. But for us, it's not. And the biggest advantage of youth is that when you're youth and you are credible in your constituency or nation-wise, people have confidence on you, then you can really get a very good number of votes and supports because people will think that he is a young member of parliament, young politician. If he doing good things at the age of 30, obviously he will do good thing for next 40 years. So people have confidence on the youth leadership. That is the biggest advantage of us. Also, people understand that with the change of technology and everything, only youths can scatter what they need. So from that perspective, yes, youth of course have a better prospect. It's only the mindset change is also important of the senior politicians of every party. That what they achieve at the age of 50 or 60, they must realize the world has been changed. And anybody can achieve that at the age of 30. So this is the mindset change is very important. And the top leader of the party, sitting in the top of the hierarchy, he or she must change the party policy. This is so important. Otherwise, we can talk, we can work in the field, but really the change must come from top to down. This is important.
Thank you, Shamim. Thank you, Divya, for this wonderful discussion. Dear viewers, we heard the challenges that we face not only in India and Bangladesh, but globally in terms of increasing youth participation and leadership in politics and policy making. But those challenges are not standalone. We also have solutions inside. As we heard from our two panelists, technology would be a key factor in the future, and we can only hope that taking into account all the suggestions that we have got, and with the increased use of technology in this regard, we will be able to move towards a much more better representation of youth in mainstream political parties, in national parliaments, in cabinets and governments. Thank you very much for joining us. Seeing off from this live cast of Dhaka Global Dialogue, the Millennial Nation, How Youth Will Reshape Politics.